Greetings, friends. Welcome to the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. I'm super thrilled to be here with you guys. I hope that everybody is having a great day and things are working out for you. We have been going through so many different turbulent situations in our society. So my prayer and positive thoughts goes out there to all of you. Now I'm going to transition. So first things first, the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with Dr. India White will be featured on the X Factor EDU network hosted by Dr. Matthew Joseph. You can also find it on Spotify. You can also find it on my main social media outlets. So Facebook is Miss India White. LinkedIn is The India White. Twitter is Indy Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indy238. YouTube is India White 123. TikTok is Dr. India White. You can check out my website, www.india-white.com, for books, blogs, or to schedule me for an event. Thank you to those that have been checking out the blog, checking out the books. Speaking of books, I'm thankful I was able to produce over 70 of my own individual works. Thank God. I give Jesus the glory for that. And then, of course, you guys have been checking out all of our wonderful curriculum in the math space as well. Thank you for those that have always shown the love. Thank you from wherever you're at. You could be in Hawaii, California, Oregon, New York, wherever you are. Thank you. I wanted to remind you guys of the upcoming event, Making Math Moments Conference. I do have a session titled Making Grit Work. It'll be Saturday, 1:30. Please join us. We're excited about it. Also, there's a Grit mini workshop that has been out and about. People have been trickling in with this. This is how to harness grit to make students thrive, or to help students thrive. And it's on this platform. And I really like it because we really spell out like what grit is and how to really make it practical. For those that really want to understand what grit is and they're open-minded enough to embrace it, it's there for you. Of course, with the Grit Academy, I'm here for online tutoring and learning. So give me a shout out. Again, this particular podcast is if you're trying to close the achievement gap, you're having classroom management issues, or your students just are not learning, they're not motivated to do the work, then join me on this podcast. And I come here today because recently there have been talks about stress increasing in the classrooms, stress increasing in society in general. And I had some kiddos tell me that their teachers have been crying, just not being able to sustain the work. And some teachers are really going through it. A lot of teachers are actually teaching without benefits, believe it or not. I know of a private school that, they only pay maybe about $800 a week, and they don't give you any benefits. And they're expecting you to still teach, but you can't provide for your family. You can't do anything. And so that can really take a toll on teachers. So shout out to all the teachers in your particular situations, what you've got going on. Just know that you have a lot of worth and a lot of value, no matter what you're going through at this time. And so with that said, I do want to hop right into our topic today of juggling stress through grit. I found this is the perfect time to talk about it because stress is up. We've got people that can't afford groceries, people that can't afford their houses, they're being evicted, all kinds of crazy stuff taking place. And on top of that, they have to teach with the threat of school shootings and all other kind of things that they've got going on. God bless their souls. And it seems like there's just not an outlet. And it's like this big elephant in the room that teachers are supposed to just do all this stuff, but they're not being taken care of. It's almost like they're neglecting themselves to pay it forward to the community and to give back in an area that they went to school for, in an area that they really are passionate about, that they love. And then yet they're being treated like trash, right? There's so much going on. So I want to give you some tips about how to first juggle stress through grit. Teachers, leaders, first things first, get quiet and gather your thoughts. Why are you doing what you're doing? Is it still your purpose? 2, revisit your plans and goals. What else are you wanting to accomplish? What are the steps necessary to fulfill that? 3, take a step back to process what's going on. Are you calculating things correctly? Like, do you have clarity? And then 4, pray and try again. And 5, reach out for support. Make sure the support is truly support and not, like a false advertisement kind of thing. So there's some tips straight from me, just how you can just juggle stress through grit and not take it personal. And don't identify, like come up with your own identity when you're in a very stressful time. Right. That's just not the good time to do that. I do want to share some articles I found. One is like a scholarly article. If that's okay. Stress through grit. So I was able to find this article for us. So I'll share my screen. Okay. And so stress and build resilience. And so this was posted in 2020. It says, as recent months have demonstrated, stress is unavoidable. Now more than ever, I think even more so now, more than ever, it says it's important to understand stress and how we can manage it. And this is pretty cool. It says when the body senses a threat or stressor, it goes on high alert. And once that threat passes, the body quickly recovers. At least that's the way it's supposed to work, except for when you have stressors coming from every angle. And it says here, stressors can include health matters, work, money, family issues, racism, or gender inequality, and regular daily hassles. With unrelenting or too many stressors, your body might be on a constant rate of high alert. That can lead to poor concentration, bad moods, professional burnout, mental and physical health problems, right? And yeah, good luck to all those that are facing these things. It says when stress becomes chronic, the body cannot return to the normal functioning. Chronic stress can be linked with health conditions, including heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, depression, and anxiety. Okay, so they say here, many of these also cause post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and anxiety, and they're more common in women than they are in men. So let's hop down a little bit. So it says, here are several tips to help women and men as well. So recognize and counter signs of stress. Okay, so do some deep breathing, stretching, going for a walk, writing down your thoughts, and taking quiet time to focus. That can induce relaxation and reduce tension. Also, take time for yourself. Okay, lots of people aren't doing this. I also was a little bit guilty of this. Making time for yourself is a daily routine. It's not selfish or self-indulgent. And it might require saying no to requests or prioritizing yourself along with your responsibilities. So start with small changes in your routine to help you build your resilience to stressful circumstances. Okay, we've got to just value ourselves at the end of the day. It says work in time to exercise, eat healthy foods, participate in relaxing activities, and sleep. Also, it talks about take time to notice the good, good minutes in each day, or do something that you enjoy, such as reading a book, listening to music. Okay, that's pretty cool. Next, try new routines. Okay, scheduling bath and bedtimes, block off time, tap for prioritizing your tasks. That will allow for additional structure, including a daily framework. You can use my G.R.I.T calendar to help you with that. You can use the G.R.I.T framework, which we know about the G.R.I.T framework: growth mindset, resilience, self-efficacy, and time management. And then it talks about how that will help you to potentially manage your stress. The next tip, stay connected and make new friends. Make sure your new friends are good friends. It says having or being a person to talk to can be reassuring and calming. Use video features, FaceTimes, things like that. Number 5, see problems with the different lens. So viewing, sitting in traffic, or sitting around the house, see it as an opportunity to enjoy music, podcasts, right? And it says reduce your anger in response to rude or aggressive behavior by imagining what it would be like or what might be happening in that person's life. Okay. And this is also assuming that people are inherently good, and that the hatred that people show you, maybe a seed was planted in them or whatever, but if you can somehow look beyond that hatred and see them as inherently good, that also can help you. I think also, thinking of people like Jesus, who really had to look beyond hatred. And, if you believe the Bible, which, I am a believer, you believe he died for all of us, and he had to look beyond the hatred of all of us, and still complete the task. And it's kind of like you have to look beyond that and practice forgiveness, and, in the face of abuse, in the face of injustices. And it's just a really hard thing to do. It is, but it's possible. But that also will help you with getting through hard times and getting through stress. It's how you're processing it. learning to let go of that anger and not always seeking vengeance. Next, it says seek help with your problems. So look to friends, family, and other trusted individuals. Okay, it's kind of cool. So I was able to find that for us, guys, and I think my takeaway on it is that there's always hope and there's always help. So now, ways to develop growth mindset and resilience. So it says here, they're going to talk about how developing grit involves cultivating passion and perseverance to attain your long-term goals. Okay, that's kind of cool. It talks about how it could be strengthened through practices like realistic goals, things like that. When's the last time you showed resilience? How about grit? So since Dr. Duckworth's talk and since Dr. Carol Dweck's framework on growth mindset, what have we learned? So let's keep going. So they've got all kind of stuff because they're rocking it out. Great. So it talks about the growth mindset explained. Carol Dweck she is the queen of this. And it says that the experience of these mindsets are on a continuum. It's not always possible to operate from another. For example, you might have had a fixed or growth perspective about a math ability. Been there, done that. Maybe you think you're horrible with numbers, that they don't come natural, or in your mind, you either get math or you don't. On the other hand, you could have a growth mindset. You believe that you can learn math because it's a skill, right? Your perspective is that you do not understand it yet. That's very true. Even in my life, I had that situation where, you guys know my humble beginnings and my awesome calculus teacher that told me that basically, I was stupid. I'd never understand calculus and I never major in math. He said, why don't I do something that me and my people can do? So he had a lot of mental illness going on there. And so, as a result, I took his advice. I majored in math because my people can do that. But I can tell you that on the journey, on the way there, it was kind of tough because I didn't my self-efficacy was affected because one thing people don't really talk about is the struggle that many students of diverse backgrounds, I'm going to focus on African Americans because I am African American, that a lot of Black students face is sometimes when they get to the classroom, they're already getting the short end of the stick because there are these perceptions from teachers that feel like, oh, because they're Black, they can't do math as well as the student over here who is of a different race, or they, because they're, of a different gender, like female, whatever, then I see them lower. I don't have confidence in them. I'm going to say how a teacher's confidence can affect a student. So I'm going to talk about that calculus teacher and how that affected my life. And I've had people tell me in leadership, stop talking about him. We don't see color. It's no big deal. But I'm going to talk about this guy. So what happened was after he told me this, so what happened was when I first started going to his office as a homeless learner at the time, I was going to get simple help on a calc problem. And he sat me down and he's like, India, you're just stupid. Why are you even trying to do this? He said it as if it was like a guaranteed, sealed, fact. Okay. All because I was a Black female, y'all. Okay. And so, okay. So I went through this foolishness and I remembered the way that made me feel in his class. I was not going to volunteer to answer a question because he already told me I was stupid. He gave me that racist look that only racists can give. And to those that have been on the other side of that, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so we're in the class. And I remembered I had missed a problem on one of his quizzes. And it was I think it was the first problem. Because that class, I felt so paralyzed. And I want to tell you guys this because especially if you're teaching Black children, I'm sure many of them are dealing with pinned up anxiety. And it's not because they don't necessarily believe in themselves. Some of that anxiety is a fear of their teacher, a fear that their teacher is out to get them, that their teacher is going to somehow try to bring harm because of the hatred that teacher has shown them, like my situation. So, but I remember feeling so pinned up inside when this man spoke to me. Oh my God. I hated that class. It's so, I remembered I had missed the question. And he told the whole class, he said, if you missed problem number 1, you're just stupid. And he looked right at me. And all my peers saw it. It was so humiliating. Let alone I had to literally tell them 3 times that I was registered for calculus, and they did not believe me at the school. And I got sent to the principal's office because they didn't believe that I was registered in calculus. And so anyway, oh my God, I hated that class. He was so mean and just hateful. It was disgusting working with someone like that. And I had to deal with that foolishness for the whole year. And so then at the end, that's when he finally puked on me. He said, India, you're stupid. You'll never understand calculus. You'll never major in math. Why don't you go do something that you and your people could do? He finally got the hatred out, right? But and I did get a B in that class. But let me tell you the psychological impact it had. So every time I was asked a question, I would think, this guy thinks I'm stupid. I'm probably stupid. I'm probably not going to understand it. And I would get so nervous, I wouldn't even try. So it wasn't even about the math. I couldn't even begin processing the math because I was processing the hatred. Okay. Many students deal with this when they have teachers that are like, oh, I don't think he can do it. I just think he's a learner. I just don't feel like he's a good fit here. I can't recommend him. Or like my English teacher who I had a 92%, and she told me, India, I don't think you can do AP English. So I'm going to not recommend you. And I had the 92 and you needed a 94 because A's were 94 at that time. And so I was not able to get AP English, but the impact that she had on me. So with her classes, and what she said about me, it affected my belief in my ability to be a strong reader. And even it trickles into some of the work that I've had to do over the years, where I've had others that have challenged the work and, oh, I don't know if she can do it because she's African American, or, she's or they'll attribute the work and say it's not scholarly work, but that I'm just basically twiddling my thumbs and just taking up space on a paper with words. And there's no credibility. There's no substance. There's no validity of the work that I've been able to do because people are seeing the work through a lens of hate. And unfortunately, sometimes our students are being seen through lenses of hate. And these are wonderful scholars that can do the work. And so I say this because you talk about math anxiety. Sometimes math anxiety has nothing to do with the math, but it has everything to do with how teachers are treating students that they feel are less than. And that's a whole other pandemic that we have brushed under the rug. Unfortunately, we're not talking about it, but it really does exist. I can tell you that the difference between that guy's class and then my calculus class when I got to UF, go Gators, was night and day. When I entered into the calculus class at UF, I had a female professor, and she also was white, but oh my gosh, she was so open and she just wanted all of us to get it. Like she really took her time to explain it, where you didn't have to ask 1,000 questions. Like she covered every single thing, and I aced it. I loved it. And then I went to Calc 2, did great on that. I think I aced that too, but it was just one of those things like, because that lady didn't tell me that I was stupid and all this other stuff, that was removed from the picture. I could juggle math and math alone versus juggling hatred plus math plus. Do you see what I mean? So certain students are juggling not only the content, they're also juggling the hatred that is being spewed at them. And they're trying to learn how to navigate through the hatred without being harmed by that teacher, whether that's suspension, expulsion, or teachers that grade subjectively. I had that too, where a teacher that doesn't like you, so then they give you 89.3% so that you can't get that A. Okay. Anyway, so there's so many different things that, like, I think I should do a podcast episode of these different tricks that people do to people that they feel are less than, and the way they hate, the way they slight, the way they, I think I should, because that is a part of the whole anxiety message. This is not all about, oh, we have anxiety or kids are struggling with just math. No, they're struggling with the hatred. They're struggling with the messages that were sent to them. They're struggling with abuse also. And we have to provide paths for those children to navigate through the hatred that they face on a weekly basis, unfortunately, in some of our classrooms. So I digress, because they're talking about the student's math ability. Now, how does that affect everything? If a student is struggling with anxiety, that's going to affect their math identity, their math ability, their ability to pursue and to persist with grit, right? It's going to affect all that, and it's going to affect their proficiency levels. But yet we have not found a solution in our nation for how to help students with anxiety, because anxiety is a blanket of things. Anxiety is caused by so many things. And the one thing we never talk about is the hatred that children face on a daily basis from those that are teaching them, that is causing anxiety and triggering that fear, not a fear of math all the time. Sometimes it's a fear of just being in that class. They don't want to be in that class. OMG. And then I think that also stems to then building relationships with students, right? And really wanting to get to know those students and dealing with our own qualms and biases and different things that we bring to the table as adults. We need to do better. We need to do better by our kids. Listen, I'm going to digress from that, because listen, this is a whole conversation that we can have on a later date. But oh my gosh, that just really was kind of funny to me, because it just makes so much. Let's keep talking about growth mindset. Get math or you don't. Oh, come on, y'all. I'm sorry. It's just, there's so many other issues besides being a mathy person that gets math. There's so much other stuff that we're not talking about, but we'll continue to play cute, and act like it's just about math. And so here it says, on the other hand, you could have a growth mindset if you believe in the ability to learn math, because it's a skill that a person develops. Your perspective is that you do not have to understand it, or that you don't understand it yet. The thing is, do you have people in your corner that want you to understand it, that want to build your self-efficacy, or are they a part of your reason why you don't have self-efficacy, why your self-efficacy is low? That's an area of focus. And so it says an individual could have a fixed mindset in one area of their life and a growth mindset in another area. So in another area, so one area you could be inclined, or you're not athletically inclined, so you're maybe not a sports person, so you avoid sports. Another area, you could be confident in your public speaking ability. I relate to this, definitely. So you seek out opportunities that you can do more often. And I've been on stages since I was 17 years old, right? So my confidence as a public speaker is probably one of the top things I know I can contribute. I love raising millions of dollars for organizations, speaking for 5 minutes and seeing the checks flow because people get the message. I love that. And I'm thankful for that. And I give God the glory. But I just think that this is so interesting, because it's so real, of how you can have so much more confidence in one area than another. Now, when it comes down to shooting a basketball, I'm probably not your person, right? So this is pretty cool. So then it says it's easy to understand how a fixed mindset could hold a person back. And in our math ability, that person might avoid seeking jobs that involve math, or people avoid seeking majors that involve math. So the bottom line is that intelligence is a finite thing. Others believe it's mutable. In an article, look at here, in an article, Harvard Business Review, Dweck points out 3 areas of confusion in her research. So first off, people mix up open-mindedness and positivity with having a growth mindset. Interesting. Open-minded. So you could be open-minded, but still have a fixed mindset at times. So it says believing that they always had a growth mindset and they're for always. Well, that's not necessarily true, right? Because you can change. The thing about a growth mindset is you can change to evolve into a growth mindset, right? It's kind of like, it reminds me of when I first tried sushi. When I first tried sushi, I remember, I think I was at Publix, the grocery store. I was a teenager, I think. And people were talking about sushi. I was like, that's disgusting. It's like raw fish. Who wants that? Like, I mean, this is my mind, right? But then they showed me there were a variety of, different ways that you can do sushi. And then I remember trying sushi, trying the wasabi sauce for the first time and all this. First, it was an acquired taste. The seaweed was overpowering. The texture was a little weird. I didn't quite vibe it. Didn't quite know how to hold chopsticks because I did not have that cultural relevance. I was just being introduced to this. But now I love sushi. But I remember back then it was just kind of like sushi, And so it's kind of the same thing with this, of having a growth mindset, learning to be not only open-minded, but then to have forward thinking and being optimistic about those things that you're presenting. So now if people say, do you like sushi? Heck yeah, I like sushi. Let's make it happen. I love the California roll and different things like that, like the way they spice it up. So that's one thing. It could also be like if somebody went to try soul food for the first time, they might be like, oh no, that's like no good. I've heard nothing but good or nothing bad, nothing but bad about it. And it's salty and it's not good for you. But then once they try it, or they try sweet potato pie for the first time, things like that, then they start to change. Right. So it's just all about your perspective and, if are you willing, your willingness to put down different things we've learned. And I must say, especially in the classroom, when you're dealing with different students from different backgrounds, and I'm tired of people saying, oh, no, I'm for all kids, and then they're not doing anything in their daily works to prove that they're for all kids. It's like, no, go sit down. But the thing is, like, if you're really trying to do this work, and like, say you're dealing with other cultures and you're really trying to do this work, it's going to take a growth mindset. And you're going to have to be open. A lot of people deal with different things they've been taught over the years that have been brought down, right, from their forefathers, their ancestors, different mindsets, different theologies, different biases, different opinions, and they kind of put that on as a cloak, and they're trying to do this work to service all students with this cloak on. And they wonder why their vibe that they give is a vibe of distance, hatred, biases, and they wonder why the children can pick up on it. You can't fool kids, right? And then they wonder why they're not like the people they work with. They all look like them. It's and then even when they do try to bring in someone else, it always has the feel of like almost like a feel of tokenism. Like there's not the sincere, genuine inclusivity. It's because they didn't put off the cloak of everything that, is fixed, that they deal with, and it forces them to see through that lens as they're doing this work in education. And this is the problem. This contributes to the problem, and it's one of those things like, that's going to take some hard work, right? And if people aren't willing to do the work, then that problem's just going to remain. And then we can continue to blame it on everything else. And so I think that, the best way to do that, to move forward, is to really get quiet and figure out, how can I have a fixed or a growth mindset past myself? It's so interesting how some people think that, they've arrived, like they are the solution. It's like, we got to sit down and figure this thing out, and be willing to do the work, be willing to be honest and have some heart checks, because I tell you, I think it's probably more painful than we realize if we really, peel off those layers of that onion and figure out what's going on. And I really wish all of you guys out there that are really trying to do the work, I wish you the best on your journey, because it is life-changing. It really can be life-changing. And so with that said, they were talking to us about doing that work, and they're talking to us about growth mindset. It talks about here, second, some people believe that praising and rewarding effort is all that matters, but her research demonstrates acknowledging the process, right? So acknowledging the process of your kiddos as in their learning progress that led to that process. Okay, that's pretty good. It talks about if you're wanting to do a growth mindset or put up posters about it, that's all that's needed. No, right. We don't want this to just be a fad or a typical thing that you do. It involves understanding and taking appropriate risks. Sometimes it does lead to failure. Sometimes you have to regroup and figure out what to do different. So what are grit and resilience? Let's keep going. So they're talking about Dr. Duckworth. She's the queen of grit, queen of grit, excuse me. And so cool. I'm sorry. I'm flipping through this because it's familiar to me. Okay. So it says grit is about sustained, consistent effort toward a goal, even when we struggle, falter, or temporarily fail, right? Grit is that substance that kind of keeps you going forward. And it says resilience is our ability to bounce back after we struggled, faltered, or failed. Some people are more resilient than others. Like grit, resilience is a characteristic a person can develop. I talked about this greatly on my TEDx talk, The Power of Grit. If you have not heard it yet, join the other 270,000 people that have tapped into it and get you some grit. Now here it says 5 real life examples of grit. So here are a few. Let's see. I kind of want to look at one that I like. You are learning a difficult piece of music. Been there. It is complicated. Has complicated finger movements. Yes. And you are considered an average musician, right, by your instructors. Many of your peers perform with more grace and confidence than you. Been there. This reminds me of when I studied music at UF. It was horrible. I was like, I felt like the worst person. Okay, so then it says, instead of giving up, you practice daily. You are deliberate in your efforts. Over several weeks, your fingers' movements become increasingly more fluid as you practice. Excellent. Okay. Then they talk about learning another language. I could tell you here, if you really become passionate about that culture, that will be more fluid for you as you're learning. So that's pretty cool. So now they're talking about 10 ways to develop grit and resilience. Let's keep going. So it says, if you're not a social person, become more social. Yes. Purposefully connecting with others. Make sure that those others have your best interest at heart. Then it says, get control over how you respond to the adverse events you experience. Right. And then the next one, apply Kaizen principle to your goals. Start with the absolute smallest component that relates to the larger long-term goal. Keep moving forward, right? Commit to making decisions that when you find yourself in tough situations, there's no room for wishy-washy actions. Number 8, bad things will happen. Try to think about them from a long-term perspective. Draw a line on a paper representing the day you were born to the day you believe you'll die. Put a dot to that line to mark current adversities, right? In the grand scheme of your life, how significant is that dot? I like that. The last 2, practice optimism and then practice compassion. Get some exercise, learn something new, and spend time laughing. Sometimes you do have to chalk it up and learn to laugh at these things because some things are just beyond your control. And so I thought that was pretty cool as they spoke to us about developing grit, and we learned more about, grit and stress levels and things like that. In conclusion, I would say just know that you're not alone. See if you can reach out for support or become a part of a new part of the community, a new part of people, a new group, join a workout group, do something, set a goal, do something on purpose, write a book, open a business, do a YouTube channel. There's so many different things that you can do to juggle the stress. Go for a walk and be nice to yourself. I think all of us need to focus on self-care, self-love way more than we have. Because we can be so tough on ourselves. You're doing a fabulous job. You're doing the best you can. So, just cheer yourself on where you're at and just know that the best is still yet to come. So thanks so much, guys, for joining me today on the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. Again, this podcast was if you're trying to close the achievement gap, if you're having classroom management issues or your students aren't motivated to do the work, you can join us always on this podcast. And of course, there are so many other different things that you can join me on. I also want to put a plug in there to check out my new grit workbooks. I have grit workbooks for mentees, mentors, entrepreneurs. Guys, I think there's like 25 grit workbooks. I'm super excited. It's 25 and counting. And so, like, I'm thankful to God because that means I have, of course, over 70 individual works that have been written. Yay. And it's so funny just to think the grit that has taken, because the first book I wrote, I was so shy to get it published. I didn't think I could do it. I didn't know that I had the ability to write anything because I was still dealing with the abuse and the trauma from my experience as a high school learner, being told that I couldn't do it. So I just want to say thank you to all of you guys for your ongoing support. Please check out the website, www.india-white.com, for some of these grit books, and also check out Amazon as well so that you can see that. Sorry, I'm just so thankful, and I just think it's kind of funny that grit just keeps evolving, like it never goes away. So anyway, so with that said, guys, you guys have been fabulous. Please also make sure you join me on the Making Math Moments conference. My session is Saturday at 1:30, Making Grit Work. So I can't wait to talk with you about it. And until next time, guys, stay gritty. See ya.